Know that God is faithful. We know that the plans that he has for us are good, but are you going to trust him in the process? Or are you going to allow yourself to be led by your emotions? Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Incoming Faithtime Call podcast. My name is Morgan and I am so happy you are here. Y'all, it has been a minute, okay? I am really excited for today's episode. As you can see from the title, we're going to be talking about trusting God in the pits and the valleys. And so basically, pits and valleys refers to waiting seasons, trials, difficult situations, circumstances. It's just kind of all of that grouped into two words, basically. I just didn't want to say all that. But yeah, so basically just navigating those types of seasons and trusting God. But I specifically want to talk about navigating our emotions and our emotions and feelings as we're navigating those types of seasons. So, just basically making sure that we're not allowing our emotions and feelings to miss out on what God may be teaching us in those seasons, what he may be pruning out of us, what he may be revealing about his character, and just going deeper with him, and even just what he may be preparing us for, so that we can steward whatever he has for us in the next season. Just learning how to be present in the midst of all that, because at the end of the day, y'all, these hard seasons, these waiting periods, trials, these are still moments of our lives, and just making sure that we're choosing to be present in the midst so that we basically don't miss out on our lives, even the parts that we may not really like so much. So without further ado, y'all, let's go ahead and get into the episode. Obviously, we know that God is faithful, right? We know that we can trust him. We know that because of what we've seen him do in the Bible, what we've seen him do in our own lives, and what we've seen him do in the lives of others. Like, we know that we can trust his track record. However, a lot of times, though, our doubts, our emotions, our worries, our anxieties, our fears, we can allow these different feelings to distract us from the truth of God's character and his faithfulness. Having faith and trusting in God, especially in really hard seasons and waiting periods, that is not easy. Like, I don't care what anybody says. I'm sorry. And I feel like a lot of people say that. So I don't know why I said that. I think it's more so, I just don't like when people are like, just trust God. Okay, yes, but like, what do I do with my emotions? Which is why I want to talk about this, y'all. But yeah, like, trusting God is not easy, because even when you look at the definition of faith, right, according to in Hebrews chapter 11, it says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So even with these situations that we find ourselves in, we literally have to push past what we see in the physical and still choose to believe that God is working this situation out, even when it seems impossible and even when he's not moving in our timing. And that is not always easy. No matter how much the Lord proves himself to be faithful, we can sometimes still find ourselves in moments of doubt and worry. And that's just the reality of emotions and being human. For me, y'all, the Lord has shown me time and time again that I am a very emotional person, and I know this. And it's so funny to me, y'all, because I feel like a lot of people think that, like, when they see me, they just see like this very calm, like, reserved, quiet girl. No, I'm literally a crash out on the inside. Like, I literally am fighting for my life on the inside, usually, like, it's just pure chaos. But even with our emotions and our feelings, y'all, that does not mean that we shut them out completely. We should not be led by them ever, but we should not shut them out. Instead, we should bring them to the Lord and surrender them to him so that we can be reminded of truth. So even you take King David, for example, in the book of Psalms. King David is probably one of my favorite people from the Bible, because he was just so emotional. Like, he was just so, like, you look in the book of Psalms and you just see all of the emotions that this man showed before the Lord. We see expression of feeling abandoned by God, feeling rejected by God, anxiety, despair, sadness, joy, victory, just like there's so many different emotions that are highlighted in the book of Psalms. Like that's probably one of my most frequented, is that the right word? That's probably my most, yeah, I think so. Frequented? That's probably my most frequented book of the Bible is the book of Psalms. What I love about King David though is just his vulnerability. He literally laid it all out before the Lord, every single emotion that he felt. And it just, continues to encourage me to be that same way with the Lord, to bring him my sadness, to bring him my frustration, to bring him my feelings of abandonment by him in these types of seasons, to bring him my joy, my happiness, my excitement. Like I can invite God into all of that. Like I just love the fact that the Lord makes space for that for us. What I really love about King David though is that even especially when it came to his feelings of despair or feelings of rejection or abandonment from God, he never stayed there. He always reminded himself about the truth of God's character and what God has did for him in the past. This is the NIV version, and it's Psalm 13, and it says, "How long, Lord, will you forget me? Forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him. And my foes will rejoice when I fall. But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me." So even when you look at this, right, y'all, like literally David comes in and he's saying, Lord, like I feel abandoned by you. How long will you forget me? How long must I wrestle with this anxiety? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and have sorrow? How long will my enemy triumph over me? But then like there's this shift that happens like towards the end where he says, even though I feel these things, Lord, even though this is what I feel about my situation, I will remind myself of your faithfulness. I will remind myself of your character, of your love for me. I will praise you because you have been good to me. So it's like, even though David comes to the Lord with all of, like, literally he's like expressing abandonment from God. He's like, God, I feel like you're not in this with me. Where are you? How long will you forget me? But then he still ends up like, okay, God, I know that I'm feeling this way, but I will trust in you. I will trust in what I know to be true about your character and your faithfulness. And that's literally the pattern, that the example for us in our prayers in these types of difficult seasons, in these waiting seasons, in these trials, in these tribulations, whatever that may look like for you. I feel like what it looks like to have a heart of surrender, while it's like you're being honest with the Lord about how you feel, but still choosing to remind yourself of his character. When we're not rooted in him, when we're not rooted in his word, when we're not rooted in God's character, that's when things get messy, okay? And I'm speaking from experience. Like that's literally when things get messy. When you allow yourself to be led by your emotions, when you allow your emotions to eclipse the truth of what you know to be true about God, that's when you start going in cycles. That's when you start, then you're like literally questioning God. You're questioning what you know to be true about him. You're questioning it gets messy. And that's when the enemy can also come in and just continue to feed you lies. And now you're like in this almost like this downward spiral. Now you're shutting God out. Maybe you're not praying to him. Now you're not reading your Bible. Now you're not in community, because it's like, I don't know, it's just so many ways that it can go left when you, especially when you're in really hard seasons. Like that's when it gets really hard. And I've seen that in myself. Like when I'm wishy-washy about what I know to be true about God, it's not good, because that's when I end up getting in these cycles where I'm just like, okay, God, God, I trust you. You're faithful. Your promises are yes and amen. But then when that doubt starts arising, when those feelings of abandonment, even by God, start arising, that anxiety, that fear, and I start to listen to that more than I listen to God's truth and his word and remind myself of his character, I'm going to start being led by those feelings. And now I'm in a cycle of just like, God, I trust you. God, I don't know. God, I trust you. God, I don't know. No, it should be this constant. Even if our feelings fluctuate, even if like that doubt arises, it should still be this constant, like, God, I'm feeling this way, but I trust you. I'm scared, but I trust you. I don't know how you're going to go. I don't know how you're going to move, but I trust you. Right? Like, see the difference between doing that versus like, God, I trust you. God, I don't trust you. God, I trust you. God, I don't trust you. You see, like that's very unproductive and it's not helpful. Like there's a difference between that. So it's like even just looking at this just even looking at this particular psalm with David, like, and it's like, even if you know the story of David, this man was literally on the run for his life with King Saul, is trying to literally kill him. So it's like, you imagine just like the anguish that he felt, the despair, the rejection, all of that he felt, but he's still choosing to put his faith in God. So even what that looks like for us, like, literally combating what we're feeling with the word. Like, okay, God, like, I feel abandoned by you. Okay, what does the word say? It says that he will never leave us or forsake us. That's the truth. You may feel this way, but we know that God will never leave us or forsake us. Or how many times does the Bible say, do not fear, for I am with you? Just because we don't feel him, that still doesn't mean that he's not with us. It says in his word that he is with us, that he will be with us, that he's our refuge. Just reminding ourselves about the truth of God's word instead of allowing ourselves to be led by our emotions, because that just leads to cycles. And also it can cause further delay, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. I wanted to share with y'all like an experience I had in my own waiting season, which is literally still this current season, where the Lord even just like kind of showed a mirror to myself, like when it came to how I was navigating my emotions. So kind of give like a little bit of a backstory. So basically in May of last year, I was let go from my job. I was working a clinical research position for a few years, and basically like they let go like a lot of our team because they were ending the study early due to budget cuts. So yeah, and even at that time, y'all, honestly, like I wasn't too pressed, because actually previously, so they actually let us know that that this was going to be that this was going to be happening back in March of 2024. And so that they were going to be letting us go in May of 2024 last year. And so I was like looking for jobs even like prior to that my official end date. So I was like, okay, God, like we're gonna find a job, like it's gonna be okay, like I'm gonna be good, like I'm gonna definitely have a job by the time like they officially let us go in May. So May comes, y'all, and still I have no job, and I'm like, okay, God. But honestly, in like I said before, like I wasn't too honestly pressed, y'all. I was starting to get, I was a little worried, but I still had like a little bit of savings, like I still had some money coming in. So I need to stop looking. I keep looking in the viewfinder and not at the camera lens. It's like, okay, like I'm chilling, like it's gonna be fine, like we're definitely gonna find a job like within like the next few months, like it's gonna be good. Y'all, now we're in August and the pressure is getting worse. I'm like, okay, God. At this point, I'm like, okay, God, what are we doing for real? Because I'm applying to all these jobs. Like, I'm doing my part, God. I literally probably applied to like a couple hundred jobs at this point. And I'm just like, Lord, like, what is going on? Like, because this was like my first time ever losing a job. And I was like, y'all, like losing a job is actually very traumatic because you no longer have this security that you previously had. And I was like, whoa. So it was a lot, like, financially it was starting to get really hard around that time. And I was like, God, like I was so stressed. Like I was still like doing like different side hustles and stuff just to have like, a little bit of income and like all the things. But I was like, God, like this is a lot. Like I'm doing my part, God. Like I'm applying to jobs. Like what are we doing? And so I remember like I was praying to God, and honestly it was one of those like prayers where you were just like I was like, God, like I don't understand, like I feel abandoned by you, like I don't know what you're doing, I like, did I do something wrong, like just tell me, like just being so dramatic. I was not acting like David. I was not, when I was like, Lord, I was just basically giving God like all of my frustration. But when I ended the prayer, I just left it like that. I wasn't like, but God, I trust you. I was like, nah, like, I was like, God, I'm shutting you out. Like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, that was really how I was feeling. Cause I was like, God, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I can remember, y'all, if it was like later that day or if it was the next day, I put on like an episode of The Chosen, because I was just basically watching like the whole, continuing through this series. And so this episode comes on, and it's actually, if you guys know anything about The Chosen, which if you don't watch The Chosen, what are you doing? Like, when I tell y'all, that show is just, I feel like I cry almost every episode. What I really love about The Chosen, y'all, is just the fact that I love how it highlights the disciples and just like their humanity. And you can just put yourself in the shoes of almost every single one, of just like their strengths and their weaknesses, like the way that they wrestled with different things. And just also just even the actor who plays Jesus, like I just love like the interactions that they have with them, and just like it's just such a beautifully done show. Like it's amazing, y'all. So yeah, I'm obsessed. But this particular episode that came on was the episode where Peter and Eden Peter, one of the disciples, and his wife experienced a miscarriage. A big part of the episode, y'all, is Peter having to wrestle with these emotions that the disappointment that he experienced with the loss of their baby, because he's seeing Jesus do all of these miracles, heal all these people, like complete strangers at that, but his very own, the one who walks by side with him, he's experiencing disappointment in his own life. And he's like what gives, basically, like how is it that you're helping all of these people, but then it's like, but me and mine, like you let us down. Literally, that's probably one of my favorite, like probably my favorite episode of The Chosen, because it literally, like I said, y'all, like God literally put a mirror to myself with this episode of just like me navigating my own disappointment, and just seeing how even with Peter, like he's just shutting Jesus out the whole episode. And that's literally what I was doing to God. It was just so beautiful to me, y'all, because that literally also, that I feel like the Lord even showing me that specific episode, just literally, that also felt like he saw me, right? Like he literally was like, I see you in this, like, and I want to show you that I see you in this. And he showed that through an episode of The Chosen, which is crazy. Also highlighted in this episode, y'all, is the infamous story in the Bible of Jesus walking on water. The storm comes, right? They see Jesus, they finally realize that it's Jesus. And Jesus is like walking towards them on the water, and like this big, obviously like the storm is raging, right? The guy who plays Jesus, he asks Peter, do you have the faith to come out and walk on this water? And Peter's like, yes, like if you command it, I will go. The guy who plays Jesus asks this follow-up question. He's like, then why are you so upset? Because remember, in this episode, Peter was shutting Jesus out the whole time. He was not wanting to talk to this man at all. And so then Peter finally says, you've been healing complete strangers, but me, your very own, like, why aren't you helping me? Why didn't you help us in our situation? Like, you could have healed, you could have prevented this from happening, but now I'm seeing you perform miracles and help strangers. And then Jesus asked this follow-up question, like, do you understand why I allow trials to happen in your life? To prove the genuineness of your faith. And so then Peter, like, you know, he ends up like getting out the boat and he walks on water. And so like as Peter is walking towards Jesus, he's keeping his eyes on Jesus, but then he starts to sink. And it's like, mind y'all, like again, like this huge storm is just raging, even as they're having that as they had this conversation. And again, like Peter's walking on water. But pause. Why I wanted to highlight this, y'all, was because that's literally what wrestling with God is like in a storm, in a waiting season, in a storm, in a trial, whatever. That's what it feels like. Look at the storm, right? You look at the situation. You can look at the storm as like the storm being the situation, the trial, or just like your own emotions, your doubts and feelings. But once you start to look to the right, to the left of the storm, that's when you start to sink, right? Like when Peter was walking on the water towards Jesus, as he was keeping his eyes on Jesus, he was fine. He was focused. He was good. But the moment he started looking around, he starts to sink. And it's like, that's exactly what happens when we allow our emotions and our feelings, when we allow ourselves to be led by them, we are going to sink every single time. It is only when you keep your eyes fixed on Jesus that you're able to remain steadfast and constant. It doesn't mean that you're still not experiencing doubt. It doesn't mean that you're still not like you still may be scared. It goes back again to that same thing. It's like, okay, God, I'm going to fix my eyes on you. I'm scared, but I'm going to continue to fix my eyes on you. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to continue to fix my eyes on you. Because the moment that we start looking around, the moment we start looking at the situation, the moment we're led by our feelings, oh, you're going to sink every single time. And I just love that scene so much because just in general, because again, like even just that conversation that Jesus is having with Peter, he's laying it out. He's like, God, like what gives? Like, why didn't you help us with this? But just to see that he still was like, God, I'm going to still step out on faith. I'm going to step out on this water, out this boat and walk on water to you. I do have the faith, but like I'm disappointed. I love that scene so much because it just shows, and even just the story in the Bible in general, like it just shows how accurately like what that can feel like being in a storm. Like you have your doubts, your questions, like it's scary. What really caused me to break down like during that episode was when Peter like sinks into the water, right? And then Jesus like lifts him out, is that what Peter was saying when Jesus lifted him out, he literally just kept saying to Jesus, like, please don't let me go. Please don't let me go. Please don't let me go. Because that's what it feels like when we're in these really hard situations, when we're in our waiting period, when we feel like God's not moving in our timing, we can feel abandoned. It's like, God, like, just don't let me go. I know that I'm scared. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know how you're going to work this out, but just remind me that you're here with me. Remind me that you're present. And that's what I love about God, is that he's so faithful to give us those reminders. But at the same time, y'all, like David did, we also have to encourage ourselves. We also have to remind ourselves about God's truth. We literally have it at our fingertips. Like God is so faithful to remind us because he's just such a good father in that way. And he's so loving and so patient and kind. But we also have to recognize the authority that we have ourselves, that we are to be rooted in God and his character and his word, and surrendering our emotions to it's like, surrendering our emotions in that way and reminding ourselves, encouraging ourselves. The way, y'all, I was literally Peter in that episode was crazy. Like, just, that's literally my favorite Chosen episode. But yeah, just like us, just, yeah, I want to speak to the waiting seasons, right? So waiting seasons are so important, y'all. They're so important because a lot of times, like when we're going through a waiting period, like God is pruning things out of us. He's revealing more things about his character. Like he's healing things, whatever. Like it's just like it typically like will involve like a whole process of like preparation. A lot of times, like again, like if we're constantly being led by our emotions and our feelings, and we're continuously going in cycles, and we're not being present to what God is teaching us, and we're just stagnant, that literally can cause that season to be delayed further. Because even you look at the Israelites, right? The Israelites deliver from Egypt. They go to this wilderness season. It was supposed to take them 11 days to get to the promised land. It took them 40 years because they were disobedient. They were complaining. They were constantly looking back to Egypt. They were worshiping idols. They lacked faith. They were not present to what God was trying to prune out of them so that they could get to the promised land. They were ignorant of that. And it's like, I know the Israelites get such a bad rap in the Bible, but we are just as stubborn as they are, because we can do that same same thing in these seasons that God places us in for our good, but we're so ignorant to what he may be trying to teach us, and we're just like la 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 la, like I don't, God, I don't know what you're doing. I don't trust you. Like, I'm going to be led by my emotions. I'm going to go down this downward spiral. It's unproductive. It's unproductive. It's just not it. And the enemy loves that, because the enemy can also just, again, feed us lies, just causing us to also go into cycles too. But typically, like, we give him the space to do that. The enemy just needs an open door. When we give that to him, he takes it and runs every single time. Just making sure that we're not responsible for our season being delayed because we don't want to be present in the midst of what God is trying to teach us or show us. Look at different people in the Bible who had to go through their own process, that had to go through their own waiting period, right? Jesus went through his own process. Joseph, Esther, Moses, David, all of these people had to go through something. They went through something, some type of process before they were used by God or before they reached this promise that was given to them. When you look at Joseph's story, he's given the dream, right? Then he's betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery. He's in Potiphar's house, but then he's wrongfully accused of assault, thrown back into prison for some time. He helps some servants in prison, but then he's forgotten by them. And then finally he's remembered and he becomes second in command in Egypt. And David, a shepherd anointed to be king, he went through his own process. Esther, she went through her own process before it finally came time for her to rise up and save her people. Every single one of these people had to go through a process. And that's exactly what happens typically during these seasons that God places us in, is there's some type of process that takes place. He's growing you, he's pruning you, like it's for our benefit. But a lot of times, again, like I know this for myself, y'all, because like sometimes you just don't, like, you're not really in tune with that because it's hard. Because a lot of these seasons are hard. Again, like you look at Joseph's whole process. That man went through it. David went through it, right? Like, especially Joseph. Joseph is probably like, that's a story that from the Bible I think about a lot. That man went through it. Could you imagine, right? Like, you literally are given this dream, but you have no idea what the process is going to look like. And his process was his process was terrible. Being betrayed by your own brothers, being accused for something you did not commit, being sold into slavery to a foreign land. And oh goodness, right? But that was for his benefit. That whole process he went through literally set him up for the success, set him up to be second command in Egypt. His brothers betraying him literally set him up to be second command in Egypt. They had no idea that was going to happen to him. No, neither did Joseph. But that's literally how he got to the promise, how he got to the dream. What they meant for evil, God meant for good. Like, sometimes the process does not look like how we want it, but we have to just stay rooted, because we don't know what's going to come of it. We don't know what God's going to do. We don't know how he's going to move. We just have to be present, remain rooted, and remain steadfast and faithful, because we know that God is faithful. We know that the plans that he has for us are good, but are you going to trust him in the process? Or are you going to allow yourself to be led by your emotions? And you even look at David, right? David probably had no idea he was going to be on the run for his life for most of the time before he became king of Israel. Like, he went through stuff too. I feel like I've seen this saying quite a bit, where it's like everyone wants the anointing, they want the oil, but they don't want the crushing or the process that comes with it. That anointing, that oil, it all comes with a process. You're going to go through something for God to use you for something. Like, that's just how it works. When we go through things, right, that allows us to even speak to others about it, right? There's always, I mean, it's hard, but there's always, like, there's fruit that comes from it. Like, that it serves a purpose, the things that we go through. So just, again, making sure that we're not missing out on what God is teaching us in those silent waiting seasons, in those pits, in those valleys. Even just going to that point of us remaining present in these seasons, because they are still moments of our lives. Like, we should not waste them, regardless of like the outcome of the season. Like, this is still your life. Like, that waiting season that you're in, still your life. That trial, still your life. That difficult circumstance, it's still your life. Even y'all, like, I've been reading more about the story of King David and just like his life and just his journey. And that man went through it. Like, before he was king of Israel and after he became king of Israel. David was anointed to be king as a shepherd, but he still had to go through his whole process. He helped his brothers. He helped out with his brothers who were in Saul's army, so served in Saul's court. And then also he just experienced, having to be on the run from Saul before he officially became king. When Saul dies, obviously, and he becomes king of Israel. But it's the after part that really was so interesting to me. So I haven't did like any in-depth study like of after the fact that he became king of Israel. I've just kind of been like flipping back and forth between after he was king and also before he was king. But I really want to mention this, y'all, because even though David was when David finally became king, his life was not all rainbows and sunshines. His life was not all rainbows and sunshine. Because I think a lot of times, y'all, like when we get through really hard seasons, right, and maybe like the promise finally arrives, we're like, oh, like we're good, everything's peachy keen. After David became king of Israel, his life was still a mess. Like that man still had to go through it. Like, he experienced just the consequences of his sin. Like, remember with committing adultery with Bathsheba, and also his attempted murder. His kids were a mess. His son assaults his daughter, and then one of the other son ends up killing the son that was responsible for the assault. Then also like his son Absalom is like pursuing him for the kingdom. He's trying to overthrow David. So David's now on the run from Absalom. I hope I'm saying that right, y'all. But David's on the run from his son. So it's just like he still is like going through it. Like, it's a lot. And I wanted to again like emphasize that, y'all, because going back to that point I made earlier is like why it's so important to remain present in the midst of those types of seasons. Because even once the promise finally arrives, that does not mean life is going to be peaches and like rainbows and sunshine. Even when God brings us through a hard season, or when he finally gives you that relationship, or when you finally receive that promise that you've been like believing God for, life is still gonna life. And I hope I don't mean this in a way to be like depressing, like, not like that, but I'm just wanting to emphasize that point of like why it's so important to be present, because seasons are constantly changing. We're always going to be longing for more. We're always going to be wanting more. There's always going to be another promise that we're looking out for, even once we get the thing, right? So it's like, that's why it's so important for us to remain present, because that's still your life. You finally getting the promise is not the peak of your life. It's not. Your life, the peak of life is just life, and just learning how to be content when you have it and content when you don't. Like Paul says in Philippians. Like, I've learned to be content when I have it. I've learned to be content when I don't. When we're going through life in general, when we're going through hard seasons, when we're going through harvest seasons, when we're going through reaping seasons, when we're going through good seasons, low seasons, trials, grief, whatever, like learning to be present in the midst is so important. That just really convicted me, because I was like, dang, David still was like, it's like, even though David like was given this amazing anointing, this amazing promise of being king over Israel, like he still went through it. And that's what life is. Like, it's constant ups and downs, but just learning to be present, learning to be, continuing to be rooted in God, regardless of what comes our way. Whether he answers the prayer or he doesn't, whether we get the promise or it takes a little bit longer, like learning to be content regardless. This made sense, y'all. Like, I'm just trying to emphasize again, like, the importance of not being led by our emotions, when we're in the midst of difficult seasons, when we're in the midst of waiting seasons, and just learning to be present in the midst, so that we don't waste our lives, so that we can so that we can learn whatever God is trying to teach us in the midst of those seasons, because they're still crucial parts of our lives. They're still very important, and it's just still our life. Like, it's just still our life. And just making sure that we're not wasting our life away because we don't like the season that we're in. So yeah, I hope that makes sense, y'all. So late. It's literally like 1:00 in the morning. I always do this to myself, but I feel like I actually kind of like filming late, honestly. But I'm trying to get up at like, I probably won't get to bed till like 2. I'm trying to get up at like 5 and go to the gym. The only reason why I feel like I can get up that early is because I'm doing leg day. And when I do leg day, y'all, like, I take like this pre-workout, and it's just like makes my body feel like, just like, like the pre-workout, the caffeine, like you just be feeling jittery and stuff. That's the only reason why I can do it, because I have that. If I was like just doing like abs or cardio, I would not be waking up that early. But I did want to end with this psalm, y'all. It is Psalm 77. And why this psalm is very important to me personally is, if you remember, y'all, I was talking about the episode of The Chosen. This is actually one of the psalms that was highlighted in The Chosen. If you watch The Chosen, you'll notice that at the beginning of the episode, they typically will start in like the Old Testament. They'll show some type of scene from the Old Testament, some type of story, and it's like related to like, I guess, like what they're highlighting in the actual episode of The Chosen. So in this episode is actually King David, and what happens is this musician, like this writer of the psalm, I don't know what they're called. Yeah, well, in this translation, it says the choir director is like presenting this specific psalm to King David. And when I was watching the episode, y'all, like in the beginning, I did not notice like what was being read. Like, I didn't notice it was that psalm. But then towards the end of the episode, they also read through it again, like in the background. But Psalm 77 is a very specific psalm to me, because it was the psalm that I prayed through and read through when my grandma was really, really sick. And it was the psalm that I was like basically like praying through, like reading through, because I was like really believing God to work through her situation, just like for God to heal her miraculously, because my grandma was just not in great shape. But I was like, no, God, like, you're gonna come through, you're gonna heal her, you're gonna do it. My grandma passed in back in 2022, and when my grandma passed, like, I did not really go back to this psalm. Like, even if I think I would come across it, I couldn't really read it like that. Like, I stopped really reading that psalm. But towards the end of the episode of The Chosen, when they're reading it again, I was like, whoa, like, I know that psalm. Like, why does that sound so familiar? So I go grab my Bible, and y'all, I don't remember. I feel like I flipped right to the page, or at least I flipped pretty quickly to it. I was like, I know that psalm. Why does that sound familiar? Y'all, when I tell you I started bawling my eyes out, because I was like, what? That's when I'm telling y'all, like, that was such a God moment for me. That episode, literally God showing me that episode of The Chosen, I'm telling y'all, because it was like literally a mirror to what I felt like Peter was experiencing in that situation. Now, granted, like, it was more so like, I feel like this like spoke to more so about my grandma and also my situation, but I think just like I felt so seen by God in that way, because he literally brought this back to my remembrance. And I could literally still see like the tear marks and everything from that were like dried up on that page of the Bible that I just never went back to. And I was just like, wow, God, like, amen. Like, I just felt so seen by him, because it was like, he's like, no, I see you. I'm gonna read through this, y'all, because it's a really great psalm, and I feel like it really does speak to like the waiting seasons, just in this, our trials, just really hard situations that we may find ourselves in. So it says, I cry aloud to God, and he will hear me. I sought the Lord in my day of trouble. My hands were continually lifted up all night long. I refuse to be comforted. I think of God, I groan. I meditate, my spirit becomes weak. You have kept me from closing my eyes. I am troubled and cannot speak. I consider days of old, years long past. At night I remember my music. I meditate in my heart and my spirit ponders. Will the Lord reject forever and never again show favor? Has his faithful love ceased forever? Is his promise at an end for all generations? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? So I say I am grieved that the right hand of the Most High has changed. I will remember the Lord's works. Yes, I will remember your ancient wonders. I will reflect on all you have done and meditate on your actions. God, your way is holy. What God is great like God? You are the God who works wonders. You revealed your strength among the peoples. With power you redeemed your people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph. The waters saw you, God. The waters saw you, they trembled. Even the depths shook. The clouds poured down water, the storm clouds thundered, your arrows flashed back and forth. The sound of your thunder was in the whirlwind. Lightning lit up the world. The earth shook and quaked. Your way went through the sea, and your path through the great waters, but your footprints were unseen. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So even y'all, like it kind of goes back to that psalm that I shared earlier, Psalm 13, right? Where it talks about just like kind of experiencing grief and just like feeling weak in just times of trouble, basically just anguish, right? But then it's like as you read like throughout this psalm, like the author, he says like, but I will remember the Lord's works. I will remember your ancient wonders. I will reflect on all you have done and meditate on your actions. So even I just want to encourage y'all with this, that even though, waiting seasons, trials, difficult circumstances are so hard, like they're so hard, but it's like choosing to remember to reflect on God's faithfulness, his love for us, his care for us, the works that he's done in the past, the ways that he's moved in our lives previously, constantly reminding ourselves of that, because that has not changed. Even though our feelings may cause us to doubt and question God's goodness, and we feel abandoned or we feel fearful, that still, his love and his faithfulness still remains true to us. He is faithful. And he sees you and he loves you. And, in his timing, he is going to work things out according to his plan. Us just like remembering to remain rooted in who God is and being present in the midst, so that we don't miss what he's teaching us either. Because at the end of the day, y'all, what is this? Let's start saying, at the end of the day is going to end, right? At the end of the day, a season is going to end. We have to remember the importance of being rooted in God's character, in his love for us, in his faithfulness, so that we don't miss out on what he is teaching us and showing us in these seasons that we find ourselves in. With every single episode, anything that I talk about, y'all, like I never want it to feel like I'm talking at y'all. Like this is also just like a reminder to me, like these are things that I'm still trying to like navigate within myself, and constantly reminding myself to be rooted in God's character and his love for me, and his faithfulness, even when I don't feel it, because it's hard, like it's hard to push past our feelings and be rooted, because again, y'all, like it's faith that requires faith, and faith is not always easy. But that's why faith has to remain rooted in God's character and his word, and not our feelings, so that we don't miss out on what God is doing in the seasons that he has us in. Because remember, he sees you, he loves you. Don't let the enemy, don't feed into the lies of the enemy. Don't feed into the lies that you tell yourself. God is present. Even when you feel like he's abandoned you, he's with you. your mind lying to you. He is with you, even in the midst of your doubt, even in the midst of your anxiety, even in the midst of your worry. He's still right there with you, holding your hand. Isaiah 41 verse 13, it says, "For I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand and say to you, do not fear, I will help you." So even just letting that be our reminder that when we are in these hard situations, when we're in these trials, when we're in our waiting period, it's taken longer than we want it to, just like imagine the Lord literally holding on to your hand, telling you, like, do not fear. I am with you. Like, I'm still with you in this, even in your doubt, even in your anxiety, even in your fear, even in your confusion. I'm right there with you. Like, don't believe the lies that you tell yourself. Don't believe the lies of the enemy. The Lord will never leave you or forsake you, even if your feelings literally are so overwhelming to the point where you feel like it's true. It's not. God is with us always. He never leaves us. Literally, he's holding on to you. Like, literally, and that just makes me think of, like, you're walking, like this path, like life is a journey, right? And so it's like literally just imagining like the Lord walking side by side with you, holding your hand. And like you're walking, he's holding your hand, like you're going, and then like maybe you kind of stop and you're like, you kind of sit a bit, right? And you're like, oh, like I don't feel like God is with me. Like you're like sitting in your doubt and your anxiety, your fear. And so it's like you're kind of on pause, right? But God is still right there with you, still holding your hand, even as you're maybe sitting crisscross applesauce in the ground, like sitting on the ground, and you're like, oh, like I don't know if I can go on. Like I don't know if I can trust God anymore. Like I don't know how this is gonna happen. I don't know how he's gonna work through the situation. I don't know. And it's like literally God is still right there with you, just like, okay, are you gonna come on? Like, are you ready? Are you done? Like, let's keep going. Like, let's keep pushing. Like, that's not true, right? Like, those things that you're telling yourself are not true. Keep walking with me. Keep going with me. Like, I'm still right here with you. I just feel like that just makes it so intimate to me, because I feel like but that's also just how near the Lord is to us. Like, he's literally right with us in the midst of the storm, in the midst of the waiting season, wherever we are, he's with us. So I really hope that was helpful, y'all, and it was encouraging. And please, like, let me know. And even if anybody is needing prayer, like, please definitely feel free to send a DM to me on my personal page on Instagram, or the podcast page, like, because I definitely want to be in prayer for you guys. Or if you feel led to share in the comments, go ahead and do that. Like, maybe there's also even more people that can pray, over your situation or whatever you're needing, because it's like we really are all in this together. Like, I know all of us to some degree are experiencing some type of hard season or waiting on a promise from God, but just like being able to build each other up and encourage each other, like, through prayer, and really push back like the lies of the enemy in the spiritual realm, okay? Through prayer. So yeah, but I love you guys so much. We are going to be consistent, okay? Like every week, like I said, so keep you in prayer, because this is a one-woman show right now. Like, I be doing the editing, y'all. But actually, what's really cool about starting this, I'm so close to the camera. Let me back up. I feel like I've been so close this whole time, so hopefully it's not crazy. But I'm learning also how to edit podcasts, audio, and it's actually not that hard. I'm like, ooh, a new thing I can add to my resume. Anyways, y'all, I feel like I'm loofy right now because it's literally 1:27 in the morning. So we need to hurry up, and go to bed. Remain rooted in the Lord. He loves you. He sees you. He's for you. He has not abandoned you. He will never leave you, forsake you in the midst of these seasons. So don't let your emotions let you miss out on what he's revealing to you. Be present. Be rooted. It's gonna all work out for your good. Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord. I love you guys so much, and I will see y'all in the next episode.